Уважаемые коллеги, друзья, мы начинаем нашу секцию «Технологии управления экологического поведения жителей мегаполиса» и приглашаем первого участника, Потравный Иван Михайлович, доктор экономических наук, профессор Плехановского университета, большой специалист в области экономики и природопользования. Иван Михайлович, у вас тема доклада очень интересная, климатические аспекты поведения населения и формирования ESG поколения. Сейчас вообще очень много об этом говорят, об ESG. Как вы считаете, какие перспективы вообще развития такого поколения и кто эти люди? Что это за поколение такое?
Да. Спасибо большое. Спасибо за приглашение на конференцию. Я вижу много лиц, молодежь. Это говорит о том, что наша секция, собственно говоря, по постановке, по направленности, она такая приоритетная. Но прежде чем отвечать на ваш вопрос, я хотел немножко, так сказать, уйти, как мы пришли к этому, как мы пришли к таким проблемам, к пониманию таких проблем. Я хочу вспомнить, что еще где-то в 80-е годы я был в университете Констанц в Германии, как раз по проблемам экологической экономики. И там у меня был коллега такой Эрнст Мор, профессор. Впоследствии он стал ректором университета Сан-Гален в Швейцарии. А до этого Эрнст занимался климатическими проблемами, вот как раз парниковыми газами, лесовосстановлением, такими всякими компенсационными проектами. И в Сан-Галине я спрашиваю: Эрнст, чем ты сейчас занимаешься? Он говорит: вот мне трудно сейчас сказать однозначно, потому что я занимаюсь и экономикой предприятия, и маркетингом, и региональными всякими аспектами, мировой экономикой, экономикой окружающей среды. То есть уже тогда он говорил о таком междисциплинарном подходе и учете мнения населения. Скажем, почему люди покупают машину красного цвета или зеленого или синего? Почему одни люди имеют предпочтение к одним продуктам или к другим продуктам и так далее. И вот если рассматривать в таком аспекте, я хотел бы, опять-таки, вернуться еще в 60-е годы. И я помню, еще сам был молодым человеком, и мы говорили о поколении хиппи. Их у нас немножко, так сказать, ассоциировали с такими какими-то длинноволосыми людьми, которые отрицают какие-то традиции, какую-то моду и так далее. А на самом деле вот эти хиппи, эти молодые люди, это уже было такое движение в какой-то мере протеста против культуры массового потребления, против пластиковой культуры. То есть они искали какие-то ответы, но, видимо, ответом их было такое протестное поведение. Собственно говоря, вот у меня есть один приятель, такой австриец, Ханнес Талер. Он здесь был на научной работе, на стажировке и так далее. Он из очень такой благополучной семьи. Отец, в общем-то, владеет такую страховую компанию. У него все как бы предопределено в жизни, высокий достаток, возможности развития. Но вдруг Ханнес от этого всего отказывается и пытается найти смысл жизни, едет на Тибет, туда, значит, занимается всяким сыроедением, всяким вегетарианством и тому подобное. И сейчас Ханнес где-то в Латинской Америке, то ли в Чили, то ли в Бразилии, где-то спасает тропические леса и так далее. То есть это тоже пример такого экологического протестного поведения, когда человек отказывается от каких-то благ в пользу сохранения каких-то природных объектов и так далее. Я помню, когда он мне как-то сказал: Иван, вот мы с тобой встретимся где-нибудь в Баварии или в Австрии и пойдем по экологическим тропам и будем собирать мусор. Я говорю: Ханнес, это очень интересно, обязательно будем собирать только с тобой, так мы сможем вместе что-то сделать и так далее. То есть это очень высокий такой, я бы сказал, уровень погружения. Этот Ханнес носил такой рюкзак, заполненный какой-то немытой морковкой, какими-то, в общем, потому что он следовал тому, что вот мясо, это может быть как-то связано с парниковыми выбросами, и вот на основе этого приходил к такой, скажем, ну, в общем-то, такому потреблению. Что касается ESG, вы понимаете, присутствующие здесь вот профессор Garotzkov и другие, вы знаете, что вот тема нашей секции, это направление базируется на концепции устойчивого развития, зеленой экономики.
This session is devoted to the green economy issues, the life cycle economy, resource saving, low carbon economy, etc. As a result, that many people realized that the limited nature of natural resources, the clean water, for example, and also under conditions of the growing level of consciousness of our citizens, considering the level of information that our citizens have, we arrive on a new concept, a new financing concept of these social and climate processes that is based on ESG approaches that considers economic, social, and other aspects. This is our subject. The management technology. And I would like to divide it in terms of lifestyle into two major groups. These are the technologies that motivate or stimulate the choice while doing shopping or use of some of the products or technologies more meant to reduce the resource consumption, saving resources, water consumption saving. For example, people use public transport or electric buses. My student made a presentation on it. Use of electric transport because it impacts the climate footprint. We use some of the eco-labeled products and some of the stores, for example, Magnet or Vkusvil, they're trying to certify their products considering environmental footprint. These are the signals to the consumers, to the population, that these products are more environmentally friendly, exercising less negative impact. We can cite multiple examples of such products and such activity. And point two, the citizens, they decide not to use dirty, environmentally dirty, non-friendly products. That is negative for the environment, that is negative for the climate. For example, we do not use plastic bags. And I was in the grocery store, and there was a girl, and she said, she was standing in front of me, and she said, I don't need any packaging. Why do you need the packaging? And this is for free. Packaging, this is harmful for the environment. These are the dump sites. The packaging will end up at the dump site. or this is a responsible consumption. This is a new step. To be more specific, answering this question, the new generation that fully shares the principles of sustainable development, the principles of green economy, a low carbon development. This is ESG generation. We can call them so. But this is a little bit exaggerated. Usually we call it after war or the 60s generation, I don't know. The hippies generation. These people already share this knowledge. And they share the concept of behavior. And this is a generational aspect. And education plays a great role. And the training courses that we train at the marketing department, at the project management and program management, we will have a large-scale master's degree program devoted to green economy and sustainable development. Thank you very much indeed, Ivan Mikhailovich. And we have a lot of studies meaning that ESG is about the youth. This is all about the young generation. Previously, these people were perceived as strange people, people with a strange perception, but now the youth will generate this young profile. And I agree with you. The new people are coming. And this is related to application of the new IT technology, different features, different payment systems and messengers, smartphones. From this perspective, we can say that youth has more chances. On the other hand, I can see even at the earlier level that now at schools and even kindergartens, we witness the recovery of the collecting scrap paper and plastic bottles collection. And nature resource use curriculum becomes more intense in terms of looking at the global climate problems. And I would like to consider pensioners, the retired generation as well. Perhaps we do not know that this is ESG movement, but sometimes the retired generation, the older generation, by their lifestyle, they confirm their presence and participation in it. Thank you. And soon we will be on vacation, and at the same time we will be helping the regions where we spend our vacation in. This is a new time of spending our free time. Our Plekhanov University provides the business-oriented kind of training, and those groups I work with the Department of Marketing, and they run very interesting projects. For example, the project on Eco Hotel or project on use of biodegradable plastic dishes at restaurants. Or project meant to support the farmers, the locally manufactured food. And if we take a look at the logical system, supply system, transportation system, and the range of transportation, again, this is a consumption of fuel. This is also a carbon footprint if we speak about sustainable development. And this is the local economy. I believe all of us need to work. And if we come back to St. Gallen University, then Ernst Moore has shown to me that only together, only by joining efforts, we can consider and tackle this problem. And sociology and mathematical modeling, statistics, these are the general problems. And we will interact with each other. Thanks. Let us continue. Colleagues, are there any questions so far? No questions. Thank you very much. Let us continue our discussion. The floor is given to Nikolai Tereshenko, the advisor of Director General, head of the Ecology of Russia project. Nikolai, I know that you are actively engaged in the tackling of ecological problems, and you initiate projects in the area of environmental protection. And today, Nikolai prepared a presentation devoted to ecology, the pathway from faith to specific actions taken by each individual. Colleagues, thanks for invitation. My presentation, I would like to begin with a tour into the background of this issue, ESG, sustainable development, etc., where this ESG abbreviation is coming from. Does any of you know the answer? Back in 2010, Kofi Annan made a presentation on sustainable development, and he said the following: the capitalism needs to be upgraded, and the content of capitalism, the essence of capitalism, you need to work hard and consume, work and consume, work and consume, and everything will be fine with you. Earn money, consume, and this is the overall concept of modern capitalism. But regular people, ordinary people, they see that capitalism has become a predator. And if 100 years ago, nobody looked at the environment and its status. If we look at oil drilling rigs in the United States that extract oil through the hydrofracture method, this is a nightmare. Hundreds of kilometers of destroyed forests. And these principles, ESG principles, they were coming from down to top. This is not Kofi Annan's decision. This is not the public sector's decision. This is coming from the folks, from down. And United Nations framed it, and as ecology, as socium, this is the responsible attitude to the society, and G, governments. This is a corporate governance. And in 2015, we concluded the Paris Agreement, and ESG started to penetrate in mass media. I mean, after 5 years, it happened. And after 10 plus years, we can say that the environment is becoming a religion. Maybe to a great extent, a religion. Why I'm saying so? The thing is, those measures that are offered at the global level, and they are discussed at conferences, just at the COP26, there was a climate forum, and these measures mean and that by 2030, 2050, 2060, we will get results in another 50 years, maybe within 100 more years. Us, I mean, myself and you will not be able to see these results. We will not be able to see and feel how climate is changing after 100 years, but we have a movement towards it. And we can say that faith is the driver for the environment protection. Environment and ecology, they are turned into religion. And is the anthropogenic impact, is the human activity impactful on the environment, on our climate, etc.? So my colleagues still are in the argument. We have so many different forwards going in different directions, but still we can say that religion is already framed, and we cannot jump from this train. Such global leaders as Donald Trump, and he has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement. We don't know what were the reasons, but they are taken out, they are ousted from power if they withdraw from the environmental agenda. And a friend of mine who attended this Glasgow forum yesterday, we've met with him, and I asked him, what have you noticed at this large-scale forum? What was the major trend that was noticed by you? One single trend. And he said, business. The entire big business. We had so many owners of big businesses and heads of international corporations. And the business says the following: friends, politicians, you come to power to 5 and 10 years, but our companies are older than 100 years. We are coming for longer. We are here to stay. And our activity is planned at least for 100 years. We adopt our strategies for 100 years. And those principles that are included in the Paris Agreement and the decisions taken in Glasgow, we need to enshrine it in such a way that even if Donald Trump comes, or someone like him, and interfere with our activity, and we need to have these guarantees that this is planned at least for 100 and 150 years. Then we will deploy our technologies, we will deploy our strategies in line with the ESG principles that many people are talking about. I believe this is a good thing. This is not bad. And religion is a progress. In general, Christianity was a progress for civilization. Islam and Protestant denominations and humanism and is another religion. So this is a human-centric era in all the perceptions, irrespective whether you are Muslim, Christian, or Buddhist. This is a human-centric. This is the attribute of the progress, unfortunately. This is just a beginning. And there are so many contentious issues, not so much regarding whether humans impact the climate or some space processes are impacting the climate. The problem is, at the global level, we notice that it's very difficult and complicated for the countries and corporations to come to one single set of standards, but they will have to come to single standards. We don't have one single ESG set of standards, and Glasgow conference and other forums like that, they are convened to ensure that these standards are settled, to make declarations on these matters at the Russian national level. We also have a lot of problems with the specific actions. We hear from the highest levels possible the calls about the plans, the federal projects and national ecology project is there. And with the KPI established, when we need to look how many dump sites, unregistered, unsanctioned dump sites are reclaimed, processing, waste processing, waste management need to be to a greater percentage out of the big amount of waste which is generated and just brought to the dump sites. Unfortunately, many reforms are stuck. Let me mention a couple of examples. For example, we have BAT implementation project, Best Available Techniques implementation project. This year, 150 comprehensive environmental permits should have been issued to the business. And I talked to one of the experts. We issued only 7 comprehensive environmental permits. And I have a feeling that we had to talk them down just to take it. And even if we take a look at the federal BAT project, I looked at for the first half year, 2021, it's zero, literally, 0%. And money are allocated, they are not spent at all. And let us take our waste management reform. Everybody is aware that the waste management reform, this is a separate waste collection. For the separate waste collection, we need 2 different containers with 2 different exits. The waste which can be processed, waste which is not a secondary resource, they should be taken and handled separately. Last year, we had a monitoring campaign, and 3, 4, 5 regions implemented this separate waste collection. Out of 85 regions of Russia, only 5 implemented separate waste collection. Omsk, Moscow, Ingushetia. So we don't have this separate waste collection infrastructure in place. This is a problem. And we can be talking about the conscious attitude, ESG, generational approach, if there is no infrastructure. If people who collect waste separately, if they see that even though they separately collect their waste, it is brought to the same dump site, so it causes a lot, there is a confidence crisis. And also, separate responsibility of producers. When the packaging manufacturer, a goods manufacturer, they pay disposal of this packaging. There are different approaches to it, and the government approved this principle in the month of December. It was rather strange. And these principles, they oblige 4 million enterprises, like acetin pies or pizza manufacturers. They need to somehow weigh the packaging and pay for it instead of 4,000 enterprises who produce the packaging itself should pay for it. This is much easier. If packaging manufacturer pays for it, it's much easier to administer. And in fact, the strange decisions are taken. And I should say, 5 years ago, the Ecology of Russia project was launched. I'm ahead of this project, and we are monitoring information across the regions. And we are talking to our international partners and colleagues. Several months ago, Johan Vermata interviewed one of the ideologists of the Green Party in Germany. They came to power in Germany. And we can see that there is a traction. But I should say that unlike many other countries, quite often this is coming from top. The public authorities, they say we cannot live anymore in this way. Indeed, we had protests against the dump sites. The citizens made the protest campaigns and even riots against the dump sites. and nobody is against the separate containers for the waste collection. And it is coming from top. This is not a bad thing to do. This is a normal process, but we do need this infrastructure. It needs to be in place, but it is coming into being slowly. And point two, the problem number two, I call it step one. Of course, this is a propaganda. This is a propaganda campaign. Unfortunately, the environmental propaganda, environmental campaigns are very weak. This is very weak. Yes, some of the businesses like Coca-Cola, they run projects and they promote these projects in the information space, etc. But overall, even where infrastructure is present, for example, in the solid communal waste reform in Moscow, we can see it, each one of us can see it in our backyards. What is happening with these waste containers? And so all the waste is coming in the same container, the same blue container. There is no explanation, there is no information campaign on what each one of us needs to do to make our model cleaner. This is not implemented. With the state propaganda, we can be talking about it for a long time. And vaccination is a special subject. You know, vaccination is very indicative. Let me give you an example. All of us have smartphones. Smartphone is a very harmful, is a very dangerous thing for the human body. At least my sight ability, I can see it deteriorates. We have a lot of screen time, then you switch to read a book just to the PC monitor, and for 5 minutes you bring yourself into senses because the letters are duplicating. Then nevertheless, everybody is using these smartphones, but there are protests against QR codes. Half of our population is against the QR codes. So there are different ways to implement different technologies. So information campaign needs to strengthen use of I'm not talking about carbonated Coke, which is not good for your health, but everybody drink it. And this is a marketing. This is a role of marketing. These are information technologies. But to be honest, so far, with the environment, with the information technologies, the things are not really great. The money is allocated, the special structures are established, but everything is running so slowly, but everything is not really done nicely. It does not mean that the state PR companies do not know how to run their job. 80% of our population voted for the amendments of our constitution. It means they know how to run these information campaigns. One, it is needed. They can do their jobs properly, but unfortunately, as with regards to environment protection, it doesn't work that way. And point three, we need specific actions. What can be said, what can be done even now, and what is already being done now, maybe not in a mass scale, but maybe individual fragmented movements, but nevertheless it is already happening on a regular basis. The soft power at the global level. Everybody knows who Greta Thunberg is. Raise your hand if you don't know Greta. Everybody knows Greta Thunberg. Soft power. Her hysterical messages, it's clear that she received finances from the lobbies, from the new capitalism. Of course, this is happening under support of a big number of youth. And let me cite the easy example of our project that we implemented this year. We have Salty Lake in the two main region, in Berdouche region. The composition of water and clay is very similar to the Dead Sea composition. This is a small lake. And the tourists spontaneously started to come there.
And there is an isthmus between the Salty Lake and lake with potable water, and this isthmus is specially preserved area. It's quite small, probably 1 square kilometer, 2 square kilometers. I don't know, but there were about 400, 500 cars per day there. And of course, there was no infrastructure. On the garbage, dirt, no public toilets, and people living in the neighboring village, Okunova village, were quite angry about it, because the Salty Lake was a pearl of their region, and there were lots of tourists there who did not always behave the way they should. No infrastructure, and there was always a lot of dirt, garbage. It's always bad. And I'd like to actually say it to the credit of the administration of this region, because they realized what they needed to do to make it beneficial for everyone. It's quite simple. They found a businessman who decided to service the coast of this lake. He put garbage bins there. They were made of concrete, so you couldn't actually steal them. And I was there last May. I tried to move this garbage bin, but it was not possible. So it's not possible to steal this garbage bin at all. And this entrepreneur organized a car parking, and it means that no one can actually enter this natural reserve. And he takes 300 rubles from car per day. It's not much, but it's enough for him. So cars are parked outside this territory, and you can reach the lake by foot only. You can reach it on foot only, and he put a cafe there for them to drink potable water. Actually, this is the main thing, to have pure water there. And he put tables and chairs. And this was done with the support of the Department of Environmental Protection of the region. And we also were engaged in this process a bit later, when this first part was ready. In 2019, it was ready, but after that, after the pandemic started in 2021, they started to build this coffee shop, and we found two Rosneft companies, Ubat-Neftegas, Tumen-Neftegas, and we asked their colleagues to finance it, to construct 2 container platforms with garbage collection system and 4 bio-toilets. It is very simple. It's not expensive. And the government did not invest any money there. It's only the work of these experts to develop the project. That's it. And everyone was happy. The tourists were happy because the infrastructure was in place, because toilets were in place, and tables, and sunbeds, and everything. It just shows you what the population can do to resolve an environmental issue. Besides, this issue was quite serious. And what else can be done? Of course, it's possible to use eco-fuel. The infrastructure for gas fuel has been developed. And since 2005, I have always used gas on all my cars. And I was a co-founder of a transport company. We introduced gas fuel, natural gas fuel everywhere. And it's quite cheap, and it's eco-friendly. I think that over the last 10 years, most public transport will use accumulator. We will have electric buses, or probably they would use hydrogen. Actually, it has already been developed by gas group of company. What else? Volunteering. Within 5 years, the number of volunteering organizations and volunteering projects such as Preserve Forests, Clean Arctics, Victory Garden, lots of them in various areas. So we're planting trees, we remove garbage, and frequently it is done without state support, without any state finance. And you know, I have a friend in Nizhny Novgorod, and she organizes. Oh, sorry. And she organizes such projects where people clean lakes and riverbanks, and it's really great. Anyone can participate. Conscientious consumption. Here I drew a lamp, a green lamp on the slide. It's very easy. Instead of Wolfram lamp, you can buy electricity-saving lamp. And one of such lamps, a spiral lamp, has already functioned for 9 years at my place. I don't exchange it, so it's actually very economical. They consume less energy, and you don't need to change them. There are specific eco points for recycling cotton and plastic. This is a photo from Nizhny Novgorod. My mother lives there. So this is an eco point. You can come there and give cotton and plastic to them. It's very easy and convenient, and they actually pay you some money for it, so you can make some money and help nature. Training for quite a long time, together with Anishenko. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the name. So actually, he's a legislator. He's former head of Russian watchdog for consumer protection, Gennady Grigoryevich. Yes, this is the name, Gennady Grigoryevich. You know, we developed a project. It was a whole platform for connecting schools to eco projects. So they were doing science, they were planting trees, and they were devising something for their schools. 16,000 schools in the country participated. 16,000 schools in the country took part in this project. Fashion. My colleague mentioned it already. When we reject packaging, when we go shopping with our own shopping bags. And actually, probably this is not really popular, but quite frequently you can encounter people who say that they do not need a bag, they actually have their own bags, in order not to waste any package, to have fewer waste. And in the end of my presentation, I would like to mention the following. It's a forecast. This forum is devoted to digitalization as a whole. And, you know, there is a professor, probably you know him, Kirill Nordström. He's one of 2 Swedish professors that 20 years ago wrote very famous books, Crocky Capitalism and Business Telephone, and 4 or 5 years ago I visited Synergy Global Forum. I listened to his presentation. He actually makes forecasts that come true, and you can find his forecasts in Business Telephone book, and actually 80% of them came true. You can read this book and check it. He said that within the next 30 years everything that can be digitalized will be digitalized, and I agree with it. Moreover, my forecast is that all environmental activities of humans will be digitalized by 2030. So, whether you have thrown away your garbage in the right way or not, actually people will devise a way to digitalize it, to monitor it, to get some scores for it. I don't know what it will be, probably fundomates. You know, they are being implemented now. They are not implemented everywhere, but I know that in Kazan, in school, Rostec is implementing fundomates. for collecting plastic bottles, but I'm sure that by 2030 we will have the technologies for it. And actually it means that we need to understand that we need to get ready for it right now. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you. Thank you, Ivan Mikhailovich. Questions? Thank you. Thanks, it was really interesting. However, I have some comments to make. So, you represent the media or journalists? You know, I do not know whom I represent actually, but I would rather say that I'm an expert in information part. So the experts in information part, journalists, TV journalists, they always ask, do you sort garbage? Are you ready? And that is really good. But if there are no capacities for recycling the garbage, then it will not help. They do not understand that there is the next step. Yes, we need to have the first infrastructure, first of all. After Invest company built the enterprises for energy recycling, and people think that this is not needed. But what can we do? Do we need to collect the garbage and do nothing about it? And you mentioned Coca-Cola. They frequently say that they participate in volunteering events. And actually, I went to Alhon Island and I saw Coca-Cola bottles all around. And actually, they installed a press there. I don't know how much it costs, 2,000 rubles probably, and it allows you to press these bottles and pack them. And being economists, we need to ask how much money do you make and what share of investment is aimed at conservative purposes. They said that they could not answer this question. In that case, the principle of ESG and auditors will actually start to verify all that. Next, you mentioned religion. So probably, would rather say that this is the culture of behavior. I visited Mongolia many times, and, we respect war veterans, we respect the elderly, and they respect the air, they respect the water. And I do not think that a person who has these beliefs about air and water will actually throw away garbage. Thanks a lot. It was really interesting. Thank you. Nikolai, we have questions from the chat. Natalia Evashkova from Marketing Department. Can we speak about the need to optimize the reach of social marketing programs and regulatory decisions of federal regulatory restrictions? Well, of course, we can speak about it. And as for me, I would like to mention once again that the first step is infrastructure. The infrastructure emerges at the regulatory level. So we need to describe the technology for interaction. And these infrastructure should be built in this manner. The step of propaganda, of informing, is the next one. If there is no infrastructure, my colleague rightly said, what will we promote if there are no capacities for recycling? And I can add it, what can we... So what kind of campaign can we have? What can we advocate for if there are no bins? I mean that we can promote this idea of recycling a lot, but if there is only one garbage bin where it's possible to throw away the garbage and it's not possible to sort the garbage, then it just wouldn't help. So the first step is infrastructure, the second step is propaganda, and the third step is specific actions. I think that we cannot do it differently, but if the infrastructure is present, for example in Moscow, it is present, I think that we already can move to the step of informing and propaganda. Unfortunately, I do not see it now. So I do not see any information pressure. So I frequently hear the advertising of Coca-Cola, but I never hear people saying that it's necessary to sort plastic bottles, and we need this ratio to change. So plastic should be first, and soda should be second. Nikolai, another question. Environmental protection becomes our religion. And what will be the indulgence for us? So, I frequently attend conferences, like that Glasgow conference, and I frequently ask who will become like the Christ of our work. We already have Greta Thunberg, but she's an apostle. So, you remember Christianity, and Greta Thunberg can be compared with an apostle of an environmental religion, but we need to have an organization. And I think that the organization will be established on the basis of the UN. They have very strong organizers, experts, Gutierrez. They actually formulate this agenda. And the governments of various countries, even such key countries as the USA, China, European Union, Australia, and others, actually they are in line with what the UN proposes. And the structure, so someone will become an environmental pope or a metropolitan, and they will develop the standards. Next week or in a week, probably I will meet KPMG audit company, and I would like to take their interview. What the auditors are verifying now, that is what I want them to ask. And do they actually verify anything at all, or they are also in process of developing standards? We know that there are international accounting standards, and everything is quite clear. And these standards of financial accounting allow the world to move in the same direction, with the same understanding that this is our opinion regarding this fact, this is our opinion regarding this situation. And when you have these standards, you can come to any stock exchange, you can come to any listing, and using these standards you understand everything. And some ESG standards will be prepared as well. And after that they will be verified. So all these structures are developed, and I think that by 2030 they will all be ready, and we will have a clear understanding. Because business, large business, has turned its face to it. And the countries that request indulgence, and there are a lot of them, developed countries like Australia that extracts coal, Saudi Arabia and others, actually they will receive their indulgences, that's for sure, because it's not possible to shift to alternative energy sources within a very short time. I mean, people will be cold in winter, there will be problems. And that's why very smooth steps will be made. Probably regarding cleaning these coal power plants, hydro power plants will be recognized green. Nuclear energy will be finally recognized as green energy. And Russia actually is striving for it. So these are my ideas. Thanks a lot. I can see that we have a lot of words of gratitude on the chat. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Thank you. And now, I would like to present our next speaker, Alec Garotzkov, Doctor of Economic Sciences, Head of Laboratory of Economic Dynamics and Management of Innovations from Russian Academy of Sciences. We're really happy to have you today. I admire your presentations. Thank you. Can you hear me now? That's great. I think that I've launched my slides already. I don't know if it works or not. But this is not something I want to start with. I would like to comment on what the previous speaker said. And I can say that, of course, you can make people responsible for separate garbage collection, but I think that it's much more reasonable to give this responsibility to garbage processing plants. That is much more clear, and I do not see that there is any problem about bins, because we can use bins of different colors. And it's not difficult. It's just as easy as dividing toilets for men's and women's toilets. And the problem is that these garbage afterwards is put in the same pile and recycled all together. If we do not have a technology for recycling garbage separately, then it's no use to use different bins. Another issue, protests against smartphones and QR codes. Actually, the problem is that anyone can decide whether they want to use smartphones or no. You can throw away your smartphone, nothing will change. Probably you will not buy a smartphone. It's okay. You can use it as a cell phone as well. Just call people or answer phone calls, and that's it. In that case, it will not actually be bad for your health and for your eyesight. But speaking about QR codes, actually, we can see quite a lot of protests against QR codes, and the absence of QR codes actually makes people unable to access the benefits that are regarded as public benefits provided by the government, and that's why there are protests against it. And if here there are people who do not see the difference, indeed, I think that that is quite sad. So now we can continue. Anyway. And besides, I do not understand how much time I have for my presentation. 10, 15 minutes. Okay. Well, that's quite standard, I guess, that you can pass people whom you want to pass and develop a barrier for others. That's a standard solution, actually. Okay, I will win time. So what is the problem about? So the section is actually about a megacity, but now we're speaking about global things, and that's why I think that what I will say now will be quite in line with our previous presentations. And indeed, I would like to speak about change management in the context of global inequality. Let's start from simple things, from the understanding of the fact that... Sorry, I don't know how it works. Okay. So the space is a fundamentally limited resource, and here you can see an example of the way it can be used. Indeed, there are two fundamentally limited resources, space and time. Space is one of such resources, and we understand that humans try to multiply this resource using floors. For example, multi-story house is a good example of the way you can use this resource. And metro trains, airplanes, road hubs, all of that is the way of using space. But in the space, the economic activities are conducted, and at some moment, every unit of this space can be sold and bought separately. It becomes a private benefit, like an apartment in a multi-story house. And in this case, Pareto logic appears. Every unit of this benefit, as every private benefit, belongs to the agent who is ready to pay more for it, who evaluates the access to this benefit at a high price. And here you can see an example. This is the house. Actually, this is a private house. It is Dublin, Ireland. This is an island close to Dublin. And actually, there is a point when efficiency Pareto starts to be subjected to space buy and sell. It's interesting, and institutional decisions depend on it. So if we look at mass media 100 years ago, we will see that car crashes were described in newspapers because there were quite few cars then, and now mass media do not write about airplane crashes at all because there are quite a lot of them, and no one actually writes about cases when 2 or 5 people died. It becomes a norm. And today, the space becomes so dense that roads are not enough, and even the sky is not enough for everyone. That's why the key point that I want to emphasize is that global players, developed countries, companies representing developed countries should do specific steps to protect access to the resources from their competitors. That is, what can we do for the equipment developed in countries like Russia and China would not actually impede with these developed countries and their opportunities to fly, ride their cars, and swim. And a natural way to limit the access to the resources is to put a barrier somehow, to do something like that. And the instruments for that were found quite fast. And the instruments are very green. These are alarmist moods that are associated with the idea that everything is so bad and it will only exacerbate unless we fulfill specific measures. And they provoked specific norms and standards. Actually, no other countries apart from developed countries will be able to follow these standards. Thus, we will not let the airplanes that pollute the air come to this territory. We will not let the equipment produced in countries that are not eco-friendly to enter our territory. Besides, we will find the countries that manufacture this in eco-friendly equipment with non-eco-friendly way. So I said that women is important. And now, there is a campaign regarding boats. It's only starting, but if you know about civil aviation, probably you consulted them, and you know that this campaign was launched quite a long time ago, and it is developing. The standards are becoming more stringent. So when we see these standards, we need to understand that these are instruments of globalization. These are the institutes that are exported by developed countries that are developed in developed countries. This is an instrument of competition, a protectionist instrument, nothing more. And this is the way we need to perceive these things. And we've heard previous presentations. They did not focus on global inequality, so there was an illusion that all of us are equal in the face of these environmental problems, these global challenges. It seems like they cover everyone, but it's not true. Actually, everyone is faced with it in a different manner, and the pollution is not evenly distributed in the world. In the 90s, there was a study, and the researchers learned that one baby born, that is born and grows in the USA, pollutes the environment 25 times more than one baby that is born and grows up in the territory of modern India. And in this context, when the USA asks India to diminish their birth rate, is very cynical. This is my opinion. You can argue with it, but we need to understand that normatives and standards that are approved by various protocols and agreements is an instrument of competition. And indeed, global leaders that do not follow this global religion, globalist religion, why do we need to call it an eco-friendly religion, green religion? No, this is the religion of globalism, and actually these people have to leave their power, and there are instruments for it. It's not weird, in my opinion. Is it right or no? This is another question. I do not touch the issue whether indeed this climate change threatens us, or it's not the case. But I would like to point out that there are a lot of foundations, a lot of grants that are given for research that says that it's necessary to take very urgent measures against climate change. And do not remember any grant that would be given for a study that would prove something opposite. It would prove the opposite. And indeed, as Karl Marx said, the ideas governing in any society are the ideas of the governing class. And in the context of global inequality, other decisions could not be expected. Norms and standards become an instrument of bad competence. And the issue of global inequality becomes the decisive one. It's not only about the environment and green technologies. I think that some people present in this room like football, watch football news, and if it's the case, you know very well what financial fair play is. It is used in football and other team sports. This financial fair play means that sport clubs do not have a right to spend on their activities, on their economic activities. They do not have right to spend sponsor money on their economic activities. They should only earn them by their economic activities. What does it actually mean? It means that the clubs in poor countries where the income from broadcasting is small, where it's not possible to charge a lot of money per ticket because actually purchasing power is low, they cannot buy expensive football players there. It means that the access to these expensive resources is limited for them. It means that the existing system of norms and standards actually make sport clubs, not only football clubs, in poor countries be very low. And these norms and standards are an instrument of competition. This competition is not fair. It's not because the decisions were the best. It's not because the products were of high quality. Not because these people play football better. No, this is a very different fight. And fair, in the word in fair play, is actually mocking. This is a lie. Let's move forward. I think that you urban people have noticed that in city parks we can see small dandelions only. Why? Because large dandelions are cut. It means that they do not have enough time to grow, and only the dandelions that are small can survive. It means that they are not cut by the machine. So the secondary feature that is not good from the standpoint of environment is decisive for surviving in cities. This is artificial selection, and in cities you can see only these kind of dandelions. But the problem is even more significant. It means that people with their own hands generate biologic populations with changed gene font every 2 or 3 years. Due to another oil spill somewhere in the global ocean, we discuss what to do with this oil sport, how to utilize it, how to recycle it, what can be done. Different solutions are offered, but chemists, eco-experts and others think about it together. Why? Actually, technical solutions allow us within several hours, if it's small, or within several days, to cope with this problem. It's enough to put the bacteria there that will eat these oil products. They just eat these oil products, and it seems that it can resolve the problem. But in that case, we're faced with another problem. Sooner or later, these bacteria will be eaten by the fish, and this fish will be eaten by humans. And what will happen? Not to the environment, what will happen to people? Actually, no one can give a substantiated answer to this question. I mean, the science is not developed that much. We do not have an opportunity to conduct experiments and understand what will happen. So, we do not think that this way out is good, because it can result in some changes in gene font. If you live in Moscow, if you frequently come to Moscow, probably you've seen posters saying that it's prohibited to fish in Moskva River. Not many people thought about the reasons why it is the case. Why is it prohibited? It means that every year in summer season, officially documentally about 10 or 20 people die because they fished and ate the fish. This is documentally confirmed. And these are not homeless people. And in case we do not fulfill the measures, the whole ocean will become Moskva River, where genetically modified organisms will live, and we will not know what to do about it. Human activities generate populations of living beings that can be dangerous for people. And what can we do about it? It's not clear. the issue of biodiversity actually is represented from a different standpoint in that case. Right now, we understand it in a very naive manner when we hope that the God will help us. So the God gave us gene fund and we just need to preserve it. That's it. But there is a paradox here. In the very near future, the God will not give us this opportunity, and the humanity will have to choose what part of gene fund we will destroy and what part of gene fund we will preserve. Otherwise, the humans will not survive in this planet. This is a tough choice, and when we say that we will make the decisions, actually, the key question is, who is we? Who will decide? And how will this decision be institutionalized? In what institutional frameworks, finally, it will be introduced? How will it be implemented? And in this sense, the research on changing genome that are now conducted in hidden structures, industrial structures, more. I'm not mostly, and I'm not speaking about governments now. So these research will have a practical importance when we're faced with this task, and let's see who will be ready to resolve this problem. It will be fun, but we need to remember that we live in the context of global inequality, so we should be ready to protect our stances, and we need to protect our national interests as well. Welcome to my world. Thank you. Okay, questions? Do you have questions? Actually, I've received a lot of comments on the chat. And Mikhail Solntsev said the following: international standards are instruments for development. They introduce horizons for the growth, and they do not fix the average level. That is right. This is a comment to your presentation, okay? I can comment it as well. The existing norms and standards are developed by the representatives of developed countries. They are implemented by them. That's why they want to introduce the standards that will be fulfilled by them alone. Indeed, they give the horizon, the vector of development. But why today? Why in these spheres? The answer is simple. Because today, these standards will help them survive in their competition fight, and they will limit access to resources for all the rest. That's it. Thank you. And that is progress. Some people say that this is a new religion. Besides, this religion that you mentioned also includes Black Lives Matter movement and many other things. Indeed. That's true. That's why, this religion with its spiritual hierarchy, well, you should not treat it in a serious manner and do it. I think you should do it as well. Thank you. Lots of comments. Wonderful speaker, one of the best speakers over the 2 days. Thanks a lot for your interest in presentation. Thank you for the interest in presentation of very bright images. And we invite here our next participant, Eduard Chervley, Assistant Professor of Analytic Economics from Belarus State Institute. He wasn't able to come, but remotely, he will speak to us. Could you please switch it on? Just a moment. Hello, Eduard. Hello. I'm very happy to welcome you from Minsk. Unfortunately, I cannot share my screen. If you allow me to do so, I will download my slides. The topic of the presentation is that generation, economic components, and the role of healthy lifestyle in consumer behavior. Indeed, I request you to give me permission. We can see your slides. That's great. My name is Eduard. I'm Associate Professor of Economic Department from Belarus State University, and the material I prepared today, just like many other materials, is devoted to Z generation. Why Z generation? What is connected with it? Why do I pay so much attention to them today? The reason is that a lot of research has shown that Z is a naturally growing part of the planet's population, and according to the research, by 2030, in a number of countries, Zs will be 1/3 or even 40% of the general population and consumers. And there are specific features of these generations that were established. Actually, the companies are interested in this generation, and today they say that that generation is more socially responsible than other generations, and it can be related to the fact that they understand that they will live in future, they will be consumers, they will be buyers, and they need to provide for a good environment for themselves. Today, of course, that generation depends on the opinion of others. And we can see that they are actively using all the resources of the web. They have quite a lot of personal space, and they mostly ask their questions on the web. And this is also the place where they look for answers to these questions. To understand it in a better way, my colleagues and I developed a design of this study. We used open sources, and we also added the data we collected to the research we conduct, and we regularly conduct research of marketing components and HR components. I think that my slides are not changed. Is it right? Yes. We cannot change the slides. Let's try it once again. So now I see that the slide has changed. That's great. So I can repeat what was mentioned on the previous slide. These are international comparative studies. The youth, the marketing and HR components were started. This is a continuous study that has been conducted since 2017. So what can we see? That generation in different countries, what can we compare? I would like to relate these results to environmental components. We're interested in communication, values, information, healthy lifestyle. I will focus on it as well. We check who are opinion leaders for them, what's fashionable for them, what's not fashionable for them, how they communicate. Why do we need it, actually? We want to understand what kind of people they are. And after that, we will look for contact points for everyone to feel comfortable.
The questions that we often ask is the question just like your own portrait. Just tell me what they say about themselves. They say that they're advanced, that they just adhere to strong principles, they're thinking a lot. But as we can see it in a red line, that they are very ambitious. This is what they see themselves like. And here, when discussing these questions with many experts, we come to a conclusion that this is also like a request to help. So psychologists say that we could call them like digital aborigines. Everybody knows that they're indigenous people in digital world. They're looking for the information all the time, and they believe that they just try to find what interests them, and only after that they go and find the information offline, and then they make decision. And this is typical for the trends that exist, and that I emphasize this component, that a lot of attention is paid to the environmental friendliness, and more than 82% of the respondents said that these questions of environmental friendliness became more important even than it was before pandemic. In Russia, it's every fourth person, and when they compare the data for 2019 and 20, this trend has become even stronger. Now, also a lot of questions demonstrate that in global format, the Z generation has three major questions, and the first one is the climatic issue, question. You can see it on this slide at the bottom. So they raise the biggest concerns. Now, questionnaires of Z show how their behavior is shaped. They say that their attention to various goods is still there, and for them, their attention is not only to price and quality, but also they pay attention to the influence on environmental friendliness of goods. Besides, most of people who were covered with a questionnaire, for them it was important to get information not only about the producer and the brand, but also about how the producer or a brand tackles the issues of ecology, of environmental friendliness. And so finally we come to a component such as ecological model of behavior. What is it for Z generation? For them it's economy or saving. So it includes money, it includes water and electric energy, and there is another very important component that we touched upon, which is sorting garbage. They also pay attention to that, and Z generation say that this is important for them. For Z generation, it is fashion. It's a fashion. It's not something right there. It's for real fashion. It's fashionable to look after their own health, to eat good food, to go in for sport, and they're trying to improve their quality of life as compared to the previous generations. The generations, they say that they use gadgets in order to support these trends to continue being fashionable. And what kind of gadgets they use, I'm going to show it to you on the next slide. Also, what's important is that there is a division into such components as thinking about the environmental issues. It turned out that women think about ecological issues more often than men. Another important observation that we saw during the research is that more ecological problems are analyzed by those who think about their health and who take care of a healthy lifestyle. So here we could also make an association between the care for their own health and make a correlation with the care for the environment. So what kind of gadgets do Z generation use, and what for do they use it? They use all kinds of different gadgets, all kinds of devices in order to record their own physical activities and to understand how it impacts their health. So here the value is quite high. There is around 67%. So we could say that this is bigger part, the majority of those Z generation representatives who were covered by our research. And this is a curious information. It's about their attitude towards healthy food. Half of them, they say they try to eat healthy food. They are trying to take care of their health. As I already said, this data is coming from different sources, but men are usually a little bit worse in their reaction, in their feedback towards health issues. Women are a little bit better. And some additional issue that we asked, it was about the selection of snacks. And here we can see that these are not very bad things, such as fruit, dry fruit, yogurts, etc. And as usual in many questionnaires, it was identified that nonetheless there is the other side of the coin, because there is also fast food, there are sweets, biscuits, chocolate, which are a little bit far from being healthy food. Nonetheless, we continue. Now, summarizing everything, we would like to see what factors impact the decision on buying products. And here we can see their attitude towards protection of environment. Also, there is complying with public norms. There is knowledge, and there is a social demonstration or social show-off. That is to say, a person is trying to be prestigious and fashionable, etc. Young people are impacted by lots of various factors, and of course they can be influenced a lot by others. So who influences them? Who influences their behavior? In the first place, these are parents, and it's clear that among them there is such a thing as transformation of the role of parents from a person who is raising a child. Now it's becoming different, just like they raise each other and adapting to each other. And also they are listening to what the parents say, and this creates some additional interest to some additional information to what they gather in the internet. And besides, they need to communicate somehow. Communication, it means exchange of information. So it was identified that there was a lack of love to what a company places in the internet. So the Z population, has a very good reaction to various events, but they don't like these public events very much, especially if those are related to direct communications. Now, continuing gathering information about who influences them. So we got a lot of data on who are opinion leaders for them. This is a part of these opinion leaders from one country that we considered. So we could see that the opinion leaders are parents and also successful people, plus celebrities and those who indirectly broadcast their brands. And besides, there is a high level of critical perception of the brands and of what is happening. Not always the Z generation can be influenced by direct communications, as I already mentioned, and sometimes they prefer to explain for themselves what is happening by gathering some additional data. Well, actually, Z generation needs aid. It needs aid from brands in what they have to select. They want to understand what is happening in their environment, because as Z people, they understand that large companies, they play quite a significant role and they have a big impact on what is happening today. For Z generation, it was important, according to the research results, that not only what is producing, but how things are produced. So therefore is important. So therefore, for modern companies, in addition to the interest of Z generation, it's also important to understand how the product, to provide them understanding how the products are produced and to orient their activities towards the values of the Z generation values. Because Z generation are consumers. They would like an offer of environmentally friendly products without compromising other things. So, as a summary, we could say that the Z generation are socially responsible for the environment. They are dependent on the opinions of others. They understand that it's fashionable to be healthy and to take care of their health. And they are looking for assistance from brands, from companies in the selection of what does not harm the environment. They are not ready to abandon the quality, comfort, or affordability and access, and so we come to the following conclusions. What options could be offered to Z generation? From the producers, they could, for example, organize a demonstration how environmentally friendly approach or actions of a company correspond to the needs or demands of their audience, of their target group. Now, Z generation are mostly guided by by the environmental component as a value, as a component value, rather than some special feature. Z generation are interested in the care, which should be as the same as other advantages of a product. Now, the consumers are not waiting for very fast solutions, so they understand that they have to wait. But the consumers are very much interested in how the companies are changing, what they are paying attention to, and how they are demonstrating and showing their actions from the point of view of the changes in the influence on the environment. Because it is important to know what the brand does for the environment around. Because the environmental friendliness today is so this is actually the integral component. This is an integral element. The environmental friendliness is a component of the Z generation's life. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? What's interesting is that we also conducted research for several years. We also saw that men more than women pay more attention to environmental issues, and they express more interest towards environmentally friendly goods. And also, among other things, we saw that. If you look at, for example, mass media, they pay more attention to the issues that are more women-related, or to environmental issues. So maybe this is interrelated somehow or not, because in the nature there is more women, and women more pay attention to environment. Or how is it interrelated with women? I think that the first and the second part are true. First of all, in nature there is more women, and secondly, probably there should be a different message to a man and for a man. So what should be the message that would be important for men as well? And what message are you talking about? Do you have any answer, response, or is this something that needs to be studied? This needs to be studied, but this, just we did not make a focused work on that. The data that we collected, of course, we have some information on how men behave or how women behave, and we're going to continue trying to understand it and then get it published. Also, in our research, we noted that when we conducted, just deep interviews, so we understood that environmentally friendly products are preferred, but they are going to select in case, especially in certain separate individual categories, if there is no other alternative. If, for example, it could be a fashionable product, or it could be a more comfortable product, it could be a more effective product, it could be. If you talk, for example, about hygienic products, then they are going to prefer conventional goods. They will select them. So did you not observe this type of trends in your research? Yeah, we did observe it. And another thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that in spite of what is said about social responsibility, especially about Z generation, in our research we identify the special components, and I have already mentioned them on the slide, that there is some kind of a declaration of their fashionability. That is to say, this is fashionable, so I'm going to adhere to this trend. There are advantages and disadvantages. If it is fashionable right now, if it is being done right now, so and this, this should be supported all the time. The selection process is very specific on the one hand, but there are some, there will be also variability depending on regions, on social and cultural components that should be taken into account. We cannot broadcast what is happening, what I was showing to all the countries. We cannot, just apply to all the countries. There are lots of different things that make countries different. Thanks a lot. And next is I would like to speak to invite Zhecha Vladimir, who is from the chair of marketing. A co-editor of international magazines. Vladimir has come from Bulgaria to us. It's going to be in English, but we have a simultaneous translation. Those who would like to listen to the translation, you can take your headphones and listen to it.
I think this is going to work better. Can you hear me well at the back? Can you? Thank you. I'm seeing young people here, which makes me especially privileged. And thank you for the kind invitation from the Department and Faculty of Marketing and the Russian University of Economics, Plekhanov. Before I begin and say a few words about who I am and a few words about my presentation, I would like to say that I have been prompted by the previous speakers to say at least three things. Number one is Greta Thunberg is more of a marketing person, maybe as efficient as we are as marketing professors, rather than being an endorser of a culture supporting sustainability. Second of all, I don't see any problem with unfair competition, because unfair competition has existed for as long as I can remember. And there's a term in marketing which is called double jeopardy. Small companies are threatened by the fact that they are small on the one hand, and on the other hand, because of the fact that there's lower loyalty when it comes down to the number of customers and the type of customers. Thirdly, we do lots of analysis here, but the most important thing is what are the next steps that we are going to take after leaving this very innovative and nice building, right? And I do hope, and I do have hope in you as well, that not only our work will remain in the conference proceedings, because this is a scientific conference, we as professors need to publish articles next to teaching. So I do believe that in the future, all of us will be described as the leaders of change. And this is to be written in the books yet to be printed. And I also believe that we have a very high potential of being game changers in a world where sustainability plays a very major role. And while we are speaking and debating here, there's one single number that bothers me a lot, and perhaps you as well, in Moscow, in the United States, in Australia, New Zealand, and that's the concentration of carbon, not only into the air, but also into the environment. And that only number, a small change in it, can chart our future. I have designed my presentation to include three main things. First of all, I have selected the latest pieces of research in the field of sustainability in marketing, because we talk a lot about sustainability, but you may ask yourself the question, what is the role of a marketing professor or marketing professors in maintaining sustainability? So I'll try to answer by my presentation that question. Also, speaking of which, I would also touch on the sustainability dilemma, because very often we are seized by our determination and also by our desire to achieve economic efficiency. Your parents, us, the government, etc., which is essentially very important. However, there are few more things, problems that we have to solve. Number one is carbon emissions, which will make all other problems emerge as being very obscure if we don't solve that problem. And the significance of sustainable development is very high for one simple reason. We do not want to find ourselves in a situation of a boiling frog. Has anyone of you heard of the boiling frog effect? It's quite a famous one. I know about my colleagues. Do you know what's the boiling frog effect? It is when a frog is enjoying the lukewarm water, and as it warms up, the frog is engulfed by the good temperature until the time it boils. So we don't want ourselves to boil into the hot water. And we very often tend to underestimate the effects of our actions, which is, for example, related to things like health changes, social environment, etc. I'm just going to quickly move on to an important thing. Now, in the world, I'm seeing this in Moscow as well. Excuse me, can you switch back to the previous slide? I'm sorry, because the remote does not work. Yes. So there's two paradoxically contradicting things in the world. On the one hand, there's an increasing standard of living in some parts of the world, and in these same parts, the quality of living goes down. And now on the previous slide, can you go back to the previous slide? I'm sorry. If you don't mind. So there's the biggest ranking in the world. I'm sorry. We will survive without that slide. Worry not. Just stay where you are. Don't worry. So the biggest ranking in the world of standard of living and to a certain extent quality of living is produced by a company called Mercer, right? And you see cities like Vienna, Zurich, and Vancouver, etc., being on top of the list. But this mostly measures standard of living and no quality of living. And the latest pieces of research in the field of marketing and sustainability would show our very important role as educators in the field of maintaining sustainability. And when it comes down to marketing, if you see what we have there, one of the latest research is dedicated to sustainability and social media communication when it comes down to luxury and non-luxury products and how does that impact behavior of clients. Another piece of research talks about the role of us as academics, marketing academics, in advancing sustainability education and research. Otherwise said, how do we trigger you to do more research and manifest more socially responsible behavior? Other pieces of research would talk a lot about exploring how influencers, a key thing in marketing nowadays and on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, etc., play in educating people to be more sustainable. Something else which sparked interest in me is how responsible customer and lifestyle meet and how they resonate on one band. Some sustainability insights, which are presented here at the bottom right of the screen. And see, this one talks a lot about quality of living as opposed to standards of living. And we have wellness here. We also see smart living, the consumers' mobile and innovative lifestyles, technological products that are integral part of our everyday life and can simplify our lives regardless of our visions. The next piece of research that I have selected for the purposes of my presentation are on sustainable marketing activities and traditional fashion. The fact that many companies have already embarked on the journey of producing sustainable clothing lines, and how does that increase loyalty to these brands? Also, role of data and social media analytics. See what I said about unfair competition? Competition has never been fair. There's no thing such as being fair in the world of business. Therefore, small companies can capitalize on their advantage. And what can their advantage be? Using sustainability in order to enhance their image. Right? So let's keep the competition unfair, but try to build a differential advantage on the basis of this. And innovation and sustainability, as well as web content. And I told you about something which is quite important. Big companies, this has been said by the previous speakers, big companies care a lot about sustainability. If you take a look at the Forbes 2021, I'm sorry, it's not very sharp of a picture and the scale is not so high. This is the list of Forbes most valuable companies for this year, 2021. And if you see, number one is Apple, then we have Google and Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook. So I took the effort and found out what they actually say about sustainability. See, what I found is most of the top 5 companies will have a separate report next to their corporate annual report, which is on sustainability and their footprint and impact on the society. Apple calls it Environmental Progress Report, Google calls it Environmental Report, Climate Action and Recycling, Environmental Sustainability is Microsoft, and then we have Sustainability Report of Amazon, and Facebook's also got Sustainability Report of 2020. Obviously, it is a determination of these companies to publish their results. It's not about talking about sustainability, but placing things into action. Additionally, what was interesting to me, last year, the Deloitte's report of global marketing trends was talking a lot about what were the positive impacts of the pandemic over doing marketing in the world. So there was a lot about free content, about encouraging employees to work from home, about support of employees who are on furlough, and increased appreciation of well-designed technology, increased usage of digital technologies, more social media presence, and of course, more flexible contracts and financial support to different communities. So people, maybe thanks to the pandemic or due to the pandemic or because of the pandemic, companies started to care more about the communities and the society. But I have something which is more interesting than that, and that's the 2022 Deloitte Global Marketing Trends Report, which says something about you. And number one of that is 66% of high-growth brands are more likely to see purposes as mean to guiding employee decision-making. People from your generation would care more about being inclusive, zero emissions, net zero, zero waste, and also they call that purpose, which drives much of their business into aspirations, right? More equity, you know, we're speaking about inequality, etc., and protecting customer privacy, an emerging issue nowadays in marketing. Something interesting that I wanted to show you as well. The green bars are people between the age of 18 and 25, so I believe these are people within your age bracket. And the blue bars that you see there, right next to them, are people on the age of 46 plus. So what Deloitte has discovered in view of the manifestations of consumer behavior is that people at your age are addressing more diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is formally called DEI, as compared to people from a different age, a grown adult. And you can see that in different industries, what are the measures and how that changes. Meaning, the majority of companies that serve these kind of companies, these kind of customers, will be pushed in sort of a way to be more sustainable. And I promise to not keep it long. So some of the criticism towards marketing nowadays is that it creates needs which are useless, that strong market players can easily gain competitive advantage, and loyalty to bigger brands is prevailing. However, there are few things that companies can possibly do. And including higher education institutions, number one is transparency. Show what we can, right, and what we actually do. And then second thing that I can point out is customer feedback and how we treat feedback. Thirdly is the design of internal ethical norms and rules. One of the previous speakers said we need rules for presentation and questions and answers, so on and so forth. If we just say we have a sustainability code and nobody knows about it, well, obviously we cannot make any progress. Additionally, support an organization of social causes. I can give one quick example. At the University of Economics, I have initiated a program for PhD students, and I've dedicated a special budget for them to realize special initiative, which is dedicated to sustainability. And that budget, it's not small, it's not too big, but then they have to do pitching, like we do investor pitching. So if you have a great business idea and you want to make it happen and somebody fund it, then you need to do a good presentation. So I did it for PhD students. I believe this is a good start because we as professors have a very high social role. And of course, commitment to contemporary social problems and challenges, such as emissions and carbon dioxide. What is yet to come, because we are now in the era of marketing 5.0, which is all about big data, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. Few good examples that I would like to provide here. January 2022 saw just under 600,000 people worldwide to participate in a so-called Veganuary, a day without eating any meat products, any animal related products. Tesco, the UK retailer of groceries, said that sales of meat alternatives, specifically burgers, mince, and sausage substitute, had increased by 50%. Meat alternatives, I'm stressing on it. And sustainable clothing and fashion, we now see big brands, mainstream brands such as ASOS, H&M, Organic Basics, and many others have their special line of organic clothes, which is also a very good start. And another thing, which is quite an important and significant event when it comes down to sustainability, is home cooking and shopping local, a big trend in marketing. Guardian and their media held a specific survey among their own panel of readers, and these are the few other guidelines that I consider important to add to this presentation. Fair and equal work payment, prevention from counterfeit goods, for example, the Alibaba phenomenon, responsible farming practices, environmentally conscious manufacturing processes, and climate change. And to wrap it all up, sustainability marketing nowadays, because I promised to answer one question, and that is what marketing has to do with sustainability. We have high social effects, and we can enhance the commercial value of products and services. Therefore, we can try and steer the behavior through means of brand communications, especially in this era, marketing 5.0, and what is yet to come. And also, marketing shapes perceptual standards. So let's shape perceptual standards in a way that we can trigger positive contribution to the communities and to the environment. I've left the bibliography here of these articles that were part of my presentation for your reference. So a presentation will be available at your disposal after the end of the conference. And let this serve as an end to it. I would like to thank you all for your attention, dear students and dear colleagues. Before all, it has been my utmost pleasure once again, and I once again hope that we can be the game changers of the future. Thank you.
Спасибо. Вопрос. У нас есть вопрос.
We have a question. Please use the mic. I can hear you.
I can hear you well, but if you want to use the microphone.
Yes, okay. What do you think about using not a popular, just a famous person in your marketing company to make a discourse about your brand?
Actually, this is a very, very interesting question and very, how shall I put it, very actual, very contemporary. Because I did this with some of your colleagues on Thursday. There was a case study about Beyonce, because she's her image now revolves around a lot around sustainability. So I was asking them, what would you suggest? So I divided the students into two groups. Number one was statements for Beyonce being an endorser of your university, and the other group was statements against her being an endorser of the Rail brand, because we as institutions of higher education are brands as well. So my personal opinion is that celebrities need to be very carefully selected based on their persona branding. Meaning, it is something long run, therefore we need to select them very carefully, and if these are people, singers, rappers, actors, painters, etc., they need to also have some sort of a sustainable image. You know, because in English we have a saying, practice what you preach, right? Some companies in fashion, for example, they would choose a famous persona for the sake of it being famous. But however, we cannot risk it. You know, we are considered a bit more serious institutions. This is my opinion.
Okay.
Of course, I can talk to infinity. What are the distinguishing characteristics that a celebrity needs to possess in order to be selected to endorse a certain brand, be it in fashion, be it in higher education, if you wish? Thank you.
May I have a second question?
Yeah, please, please.
What do you think about, I don't know, shares marketing?
Which one? Once again?
Shares marketing. I mean, like Tesla is producing around 400,000 machines, but Volkswagen making them more high-full machines. But price of Volkswagen shares is low between Tesla.
See, what happens in business, if I understand your question correctly, what happens in business, if something is phenomenally new and works well for the benefits of the society, it will take another 1 or 2 years before all other companies copy and paste that. Do you remember what happened to Tesla in 2013? Motor Trend Car of the Year for the first time. Electric car, no way. Nowhere near that ranking. But nowadays, as of 2021, November, 90% of global producers of automobiles have announced that they will go electric by 2030. Some of them even by 2025. So shares of Tesla, if you ask me, this is a temporary phenomenon. Very, very, very soon, maybe in the next year, and now I would remember what I'm telling you now, you will see shares of Volkswagen and Toyota, because next year they will be launching a model which is fully electric, will go sky high, just like Tesla is in the moment. But you know, they take advantage of the so-called pioneer advantage, because they are the first on the market. So shares marketing is quite an important thing, but there's all, sometimes it's like a bit of a gambling, especially in the Tesla example, you know, because behind those shares there's industrial capacity and there's human capacity, which other companies have in abundance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Коллеги, еще вопросы?
Colleagues, more questions? Не надо,
Email is also available there, so if you have any questions, I may also invite you to an open conference. We were also discussing the opportunity of doing a cross-university challenge, what you call an Olympiad, right? So we can do that, I think.
Because the question and your answer remind me that this year we decided to postpone the conference which we call Plekhanov Forum of Teachers, of Professors. We decided to organize it on March, not to combine with this forum and the forum which we'll have on Wednesday as well. And the topic, we organized this conference in our university, but we are all from our department are organizers for 10 years already. And in March, the topic will be the personal brand of professor. And first of all, we would like to invite you because as we, I wanted to make some link between your answer and the question which this young man asked you in the beginning. I don't know your name. I'm sorry. Vlad as well as. And speaking about your question about celebrities which can be selected to promote brands, if we put this idea into the more serious to academic environment like university or department or educational program, seems to me the well-known experts, professors, personal brand of professors can play a role of celebrity and to promote this kind of ideas. Probably we will again open this kind of discussion during our March conference. Jean Borisna.
And thank you for adding on this statement. I believe that this is completely correct and does not necessarily need to be someone from fashion or from music. So I will be glad, I gladly accept the invitation. I hope the pandemic would permit me to travel, but it will be my pleasure to be with you again.
Yeah, we were thinking to what month we can postpone it, because normally it used to be on December as well, but in February we will celebrate the 115th anniversary of Plekhanov University. And in April, all other conferences are organized in marketing spheres, especially. And therefore, we decided to organize it in March. March is quite good.
Please be there. And thank you for the invitation again. Thank you for your attention as well. Thank you.
Thank you. И у нас еще остается один доклад.
We have one more presentation from Plekhanov University Marketing Department. Elena will showcase our most recent study in the area of sustainable development that is not still finalized. But before we begin to talk about this research, thanks for allowing us to speak, and thank you for organizing such lectorium, such a session as of yesterday's. And yesterday's evening, our section received the biggest number of visitors, of guests, and we want to thank our colleagues that are here with us today, both here and online, because this is extremely important. And there are several points to draw your attention to before some of the things from the study that is not concluded yet. And yesterday, during the meeting with our end customer, we presented results of this study, and we are preparing a report, and we're fully editing it. And that's why only partially we will be touching upon these aspects. You know that our marketing department was the first in Russia, and over the course of 7 recent years, we deliver a lot of research programs that become a foundation for the decisions that concern with all citizens of Moscow, as it concerns with organization and perception by passengers and Moscow citizens, the conditions we live in, and including the conditions that are related to the problems derived from the transport complex. One of our colleagues, one of our speakers, criticized the fact that not all the speakers speak to the point what this section is meant to be about. But I want to be very specific. Moscow is one of the 50 biggest cities of the world. And if we speak about global inequality, We have studies and research projects in this area. One of the founders of the modern classical marketing, Professor Kotler, he published 2 books recently. One of the books is related to the problems and opportunities created by the capitalist economic system. And also, the second book is devoted to the democratic foundation, so social basis for marketing and its development. And in both books, he claims that one of the main trends is development of metropolises. In fact, we are witnessing the number of citizens increasing in Moscow. I remember that in the beginning of 90s it was 8 million population inhabitants, and now Moscow is running 24th among 50 biggest cities of the world. This is somewhere in the mid-layer, and our population is almost 13 million population inhabitants in Moscow registered. And here we are not just talking about Muscovites, not just about the guests of our capital who enjoy all the services, and we are talking about the fact that Moscow has become a center of the metropolis, because today we cannot separate Moscow from Moscow region. And every day Moscow hosts multiple citizens of Moscow working in Moscow and who come on business, apart from those people who come to Moscow and stay here to spend a short time, maybe several days or week. And the citizens of Moscow region who travel, and they make these trips every day, they are commuters, and they also create problems for Moscow transport, and research needs to be done. And let me introduce a group out of the big scientists, researchers engaged in this research, and the name is shown here. Once again,
I would like to say that the customer was special non-commercial organizer of cargo carriers in Moscow region, and the research that was carried out, actually we initiated this research in spring, so that our chair and in particular Ms. Lukina initiated back in spring, so that we could monitor how the factors of the development of the transport complex could influence or impact the ecology and the health of people. And the most importantly, because marketing, this is the problems of the marketing is to research the perceptions and attitudes of various consumers towards different products. So it's very important how the residents of the city perceive the problems of the environment, of the ecology. Now, we, 3 of us, we were here and we are here. These are representatives of that research teams, Ms. Lukina, Ms. Zhana Borisovna, and 2 of our other colleagues are present online. So can I switch to the next slide, please? Just switch to the next slide, please. That's it, thank you. One of the latest reports of the head of the Moscow Transport Complex of the Department of Transport and Development. And so this is the graduate of our university, who is called which is called Moscow Transport Development and Confidence Building and Development. Now, this is one of the priority tasks which our chair and other academic institutions and representatives of other academic institutions are proposing as to communicate with the consumer. One of the priorities of Moscow Transport today is, above all those, it's a development those trends and of this and the statistics of Moscow transport that we all observe as the residents and passengers. And that could be presented through statistics. For example, from 2010, Moscow transport has become a top leader in its development, and it became also a leader in the implementation of environmental projects that could change the behavior of the consumers, their concerns, expectations, etc. And if in 2010 there were 182 subway stations, I mean railway stations, in 2001 this figure has increased practically by 2 times until 332 stations, and we all observe all those construction which is ahead of all the deadlines and all those things like that. And our faculty, our chair participated in various projects and so noted how the attitude towards safety on road is changing and how the mobility issues of people were resolved and how they are going to be resolved further in the future, etc. And among 5 priorities, so there are 5 priorities that are noted by the Department of Transport, including the based on the research, among other things. So this is accessibility, affordability, safety, and simple use. So these are the values that need to be studied, that need to be learned, and that need to be managed by the company when various brainstormings are conducted, so that so as to develop various strategic goals and to see how people's attitude or position towards all the issues are changing, such as environmental issues or development of vehicles, transport, etc. Now, speaking about the latest project, you are among the first listeners who see and who listen to this presentation. Now, the key problem in the sphere of public transport is the increased risk, the increase in the risk of environmental contamination. This is a technical component of all the transport complex which influences the environment. As for the marketing component, it is about increase in the perception of the danger proceeding from what the residents see as living in a large city as Moscow. You know, living in a large city as Moscow, it creates its own advantages on the one hand and benefits, but on the other hand, we all are in a situation when there is more danger around. Now, what are the major directions and types of impact of the transport factors that we studied, which influence, which affect the perception of people regarding the problems related to the transport complex? Now, the quality of air. When we say about air quality, we all think that just the more units of transport are on roads, whether it's electric buses or individual cars, all of these things, they create a carbon footprint. So the state of the city is becoming worse, deteriorates. The architecture of the city cannot be contemplated, cannot be in a natural way. I mean, so winds natural don't flow, especially in the moments when the weather is still, when there is no wind. Also, it means noise, etc. But when we were at the beginning of this research, I remember when we had a very deep discussion on this, and one of our colleagues who is present in here, this is Zhana Borisovna Mosatova, she said that environmental behavior and environmental understanding of the problem is such a comprehensive term that we cannot just look at only the factors that are on the surface, such as, for example, exhaust smoke, just maybe some small particles that are created by brakes and make the air dirty, but also include their noise, include music and light that is created by cars and other types of transport. They all influence how the consumers react and how they perceive it. Vibration, especially coming from the railroads transport or cargo transport. Like today, we were going by car early in the morning on a big highway or a motorway, and then there were bridges, and at some time we had to stop because there was a bottleneck and a jam. And he said, "Can you feel the vibration of this bridge?" So I was inside the car and I could feel it, but on the bridge. But imagine what people who live next to this motorway feel, and who feel this all the time. And also change of the climate due to the waste emissions. So this is also a very important factor that we researched. And if you take everything in summary, if you if we look at the methodology that included all types of areas, research areas, and so we identified three major components that of impact on environment created by the transport complex. This is a direct impact, such as emissions, etc. Indirect impact, it could be how the quantity of illnesses, the quantity of ill people is growing. For example, the problems with lungs among residents of Moscow, especially among the residents of certain districts of Moscow who are next to big motorways. So we collected these statistics in order to see and to record how the environmental problems and the factors related to the transport complex and development of the transport complex impact health. Not only health, but their psychological perception of the problems and their some real facts of incidences of illnesses. And so there are direct and indirect impacts, and then there is a total impact, which are consisting of both previously mentioned problems. Another slide. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. It's a very big research. Although in this research, in addition to the analysis of the statistics, and so it includes the information that was, published in large scientific research reports. So there was a survey of more than 300 Muscovites living in various regions of Moscow and with various education level, various income levels, etc., etc. So what we see is that, and just the administration of the city, the department of the transport, and various information companies like mass media companies, they can make a soft influence, soft impact on the consumer behavior. And also it could be a direct impact. On the one hand, direct impact, hard impact is very easy to do. For example, you can forbid the entry into the city center, or you can restrict the number by using some decisions. You can restrict the number of parking lots. You can increase the price for parking, for example. You could introduce some kind of a hard impact measures which force the residents of Moscow to stop using the personal transport. But the decisions that should be targeted at the creating of a new behavior, especially when we're talking about colleagues from Minsk and other research also demonstrates that. So especially representatives of the young generation and Z generation people, they are ready to implement the various patterns of responsible behavior, environmental behavior, including healthy lifestyle, etc., because it is becoming fashionable, it becomes interesting, and the most important thing that it influences the improvement of the health of people and their attitude towards environment. It makes them more environmentally friendly. Now, speaking speaking about the hard impact measures, so this is point number 1, which is already implemented by us. It could be only recommended in a comprehensive way so that it is less painful for residents of a city. And the second point, this is directly related to marketing, because above all, it is about proactive approach, because marketing is responsible for the creation of values of the new behavioral model and creating new demands. So therefore, providing information to the citizens, creating demand for public transport or micromobility as opposed to individual transport, development of the programs of healthy lifestyle. So here it should be said that quite many solutions have already been implemented, but there is still a lot of heavy solutions that need to be implemented and recommended by our chair. And also, this is environmentally friendly lifestyle. First of all, it should become fashionable, and then it should become natural for everyone. I can then provide the floor to my colleagues, Anastasia and Jana, who were not just observers, but they were active executors of this project. So I no longer would like to, keep you just listening to this presentation. But what I would like to mention in the end is that our research is becoming a good contribution in the promotion of some elements of responsible behavior and for preservation of the health and environment and the healthy environment. Well, I'll just make a small addition. I also worked on the research and survey of people in Moscow, and I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the research demonstrated that the most dangerous factors from the point of view of the residents of our city, which have a negative impact on the health, such as pollution of air and noise, and exactly they were associated with the residents who have vehicles, personal vehicles. So, and it's really serious issue, because even the residents, they already understand that the danger is coming from vehicles in terms of environment and health, and this should be also taken into account when developing strategic decisions. A figure that I would like to provide is that our research demonstrated that the reduction of the use of public and individual transport by 5% will result in the increase of the significance increase of the health by 20%. 5% decrease in vehicles will increase health by 20%. So these are the figures that we came to during our research. Thanks a lot. We have a comment from chat. Mikhail Sontsov. The environmental factor, it has an impact on the quality of life of a person. For a person, it's more important than the factors that influence the environmental factors of the society. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. When there is individual attitude towards the environment, then we are more active in our response. Thanks a lot for participation in these lectures. Thanks a lot for the questions in the chat. Thanks a lot for the questions from the room, from the audience. And our session was registered. There were around 600 people who were registered for our session. So it means it was very interesting. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your attention.